The journey of the English language is a tale of survival, transformation, and global conquest, not of armies, but of words. It begins thousands of years ago with the hypothetical Proto-Indo-European language, spoken by a group of prehistoric people whose linguistic descendants would spread across Europe and parts of Asia. From this ancient root, the Germanic branch emerged, and among its speakers were the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. These tribes sailed across the North Sea in the 5th century to settle in Britain, displacing the Romanized Celts and bringing with them the foundations of what we now call Old English. This early form of the language bore little resemblance to modern English. It was a complex system with inflectional endings and a vocabulary drawn from Germanic roots. Works like Beowulf reflect its poetic structure and harsh, consonant-heavy sounds. Though the Celts had little linguistic influence on English, a few remnants of their language and place names remain. The 9th century brought a new wave of change with the Norse invasions. Scandinavian Vikings, especially in the region known as the Danelaw, didn't just plunder, they stayed and intermingled. Their Old Norse language heavily influenced English, especially in vocabulary and syntax. Words like sky, egg, they, and take came directly from Norse, and the interaction between Old English and Norse likely helped simplify the grammar of English over time, reducing inflections and setting the stage for future transformation. A seismic linguistic shift occurred after the Norman Conquest in 1066. The Normans, originally Norse themselves but French-speaking by this point, took control of England and brought their language with them. French became the language of the ruling class, law, and high culture, while English was relegated to the peasants. Over time, the two languages merged, and English absorbed thousands of French words related to law, government, art, and food. Old English evolved into Middle English, a more flexible, expressive form seen in the works of Geoffrey Chaucer. Grammar became simpler, word order more important, and vocabulary richer and more diverse. By the late 15th century, the invention of the printing press by William Caxton marked a turning point in the standardization of English. As books became more widely available, spelling began to settle into more regular patterns, though many inconsistencies still remained. The Renaissance brought an influx of Latin and Greek vocabulary, especially in the sciences, philosophy, and the arts. During this period, Shakespeare revolutionized the language. His plays introduced new words and idioms, and demonstrated the flexibility and expressive power of English. The King James Bible, published in 1611, further standardized English, embedding phrases and structures still familiar today. The Age of Exploration extended English far beyond the British Isles. As the British Empire expanded, English absorbed words from the languages it encountered, Hindi, Arabic, Swahili, and many others, enriching its vocabulary even more. In the Americas, English took on a new identity. Noah Webster's reforms helped differentiate American spelling and usage from British norms. As time went on, distinct dialects developed in Australia, Canada, and across the former colonies, each shaping English in their own unique ways. The Industrial Revolution introduced a flood of new terminology as science and technology progressed. English adapted rapidly, coining new words for inventions, processes, and industries. The rise of newspapers, the telegraph, and later the radio helped unify language usage and spread new forms of communication. In the 20th century, the influence of American culture, through film, music, advertising, and television, propelled American English and its slang into global prominence. In the digital age, English continues to evolve at an unprecedented pace. The rise of texting, memes, and internet culture has given birth to new abbreviations, altered grammar norms, and even introduced emoji as part of daily communication. Words like LOL, by the way, and even Google as a verb show how quickly the language adapts to technological change. Some argue this marks a decline in linguistic standards, while others see it as natural evolution, proof that English remains a living, breathing force. As we peer into the future of the English language, we're not just speculating about vocabulary or grammar, we're asking profound questions about identity, technology, and globalization. The role of English as the dominant global language has been a product of historical forces, colonization, economic power, cultural influence, and digital dominance. But now, in a rapidly changing world where technology and culture are evolving faster than ever, the future of English is no longer guaranteed, it is being actively reshaped. One of the central questions is whether English will continue to be the world's lingua franca, the bridge language used by people from different native tongues to communicate. Currently, over 1.5 billion people speak English to some degree, but for the majority of them, it's not their first language. English is the default language of international business, science, aviation, diplomacy, and the internet. But with The rise of powerful real-time translation technologies, like AI-based speech translators, wearable translation devices, and advanced multilingual platforms, the practical need to learn English may decrease. If someone in China can speak Mandarin and be instantly understood in English by someone in Brazil, without ever having studied the language, then English's dominance as a necessary global skill may weaken. This doesn't mean English will vanish, but its role may shift from essential to optional, especially in formal and transactional communication. At the same time, English is not standing still. It's mutating and blending with local languages in ways never seen before. Dialects like Singlish, Singaporean English, Hinglish, Hindi English, Taglish, Tagalog English, and Nigerian Pidgin English are more than quirky slang, they are full-fledged linguistic systems that reflect the cultural, social, and emotional realities of their speakers. In these hybrids, English provides structure or core vocabulary, while local languages infuse rhythm, idioms, and cultural nuance. This localization process means that global English is becoming a family of Englishes, each adapted to specific regions, creating a rich but increasingly fragmented linguistic landscape. Technological influence also suggests that the future of English, and language in general, might be more visual. Already, we see the rise of emojis, memes, GIFs, and abbreviated internet slang as legitimate parts of communication. Emojis, for instance, serve as emotional or contextual modifiers, often replacing entire sentences or adding layers of meaning that words alone can't capture. Consider how a message like, "I'm fine smiling face with smiling eyes," differs in tone from, "I'm fine unamused face." The emoji redefines the sentence's true intent. In the same way that ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs or Chinese logograms combine text and visual elements, the English of tomorrow might blend letters, symbols, visuals, and even audio cues into a new, more intuitive form of expression. This multimodal communication is already standard on social platforms, and it may become dominant in future forms of writing and storytelling. Linguists and futurists predict that English may undergo grammatical simplification as it spreads globally. Non-native speakers tend to drop complex structures, irregular verb forms, and idiomatic phrases, favoring simpler and more direct expressions. This trend is already seen in what some scholars call globish, a pared-down, utilitarian version of English used in global communication. It avoids cultural references, complex tenses, and idioms that might confuse international speakers. While this could make English more accessible, it may also lead to a loss of linguistic richness and nuance in certain contexts. In essence, the future of English is being pulled in multiple directions. On one hand, technology may reduce the necessity of learning English. On the other, globalization and localization are turning it into a patchwork of dialects and hybrid forms. Meanwhile, digital culture is pushing English toward a more visual and emotionally expressive mode of communication, merging text, imagery, and voice into a seamless linguistic experience. Whether English continues to reign as the world's dominant language or transitions into a supporting role in a polyglot digital society, one thing is clear: it will continue to evolve, not through top-down rules, but through the millions of people using it every day, shaping it to fit their worlds. Yet even amid all this change, one thing remains clear: the story of English isn't finished. It's being shaped right now, by content creators, students, AI, and everyday speakers. Every tweet, TikTok, blog post, and classroom discussion adds to the narrative. This dynamic history reminds us that language isn't just a tool, it's a mirror of human culture, innovation, and identity.